Welcome to another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous, coming to you 6 days a week as we interview whitetail experts and hear their traditions and personal stories of the hunt. Learn more about the latest gear, discover proven tips, and the latest strategies so you can make your next hunt a success. Now, here's your host, Bruce Hutchin.
On behalf of Whitetail Rendezvous, this is your host, Bruce Hutchin, and I want to say thank you to everybody for making 2016 a banner year. Why? Because we went over 100,000 iTunes downloads. Why? Because we had over 300 guests on the show. And talking about the show, sometimes my guests are in a tree stand, sitting in a pickup truck on the top of a hill, or just don't have great bandwidth to pick up the recording. So I apologize for that. We're doing the best we can, but this is a real show with real people in real places.
This is Whitetail Rendezvous Podcast, episode number 320.
Welcome to another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous. This is your host. We're heading over to Iowa today, and we're going to connect with Brandon Dahms. Now, Brandon is part of Trophy Bucks of Iowa, a huge Facebook page. If you haven't been there, check out Facebook, Trophy Bucks of Iowa. And what's it all about? Well, what they do is they share memories. They're helping people keep their memories, remember their hunt, and enjoy the joy of the hunt. Stay tuned. It's going to be an interesting show. Hey, listeners, don't forget to text 33444 Food Plot for your free Food Plot ebook. Welcome to another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous. This is your host, and hey, we're heading out to Iowa today, and we're going to talk to Brandon Dahms. Now, Brandon is with Trophy Bucks of Iowa. Brandon, welcome to the show.
Hey, I appreciate you having on.
Hey, everybody, this is the first show of 2017, so, we're kicking off the year great because everybody knows how big bucks are in Iowa. Brandon and his crew have done something really unique. So, Brandon, just jump right in now and start talking about how Trophy Bucks of Iowa came to be and what you guys are doing.
Yeah, well, Eric Klein, he actually started Trophy Bucks of Iowa just about a year ago. And he wanted a great way to share his harvests and some of his friends' harvests. And so he started a Facebook page, Trophy Bucks of Iowa. And initially it was just for him and some close friends. And they just wanted kind of a forum to everybody, kind of a bragging board and share their success stories. And it kind of just took off. People now make it their daily routine to come check Trophy Bucks of Iowa, and anybody can send us their pictures and stories and where they took them, and we basically post, and everybody gets on there and congratulates them, and it really makes them feel good about it.
How do you guys get started? What was the genesis of doing this?
Eric just kind of took a buck, and he really wanted to show some friends on Facebook, and instead of just putting it on his personal page, he started the Trophy Bucks of Iowa, and some of his friends had texted him and said, hey, can you share my deer? And so pretty soon he had 3-4 deer on there, and a couple of their friends shared the post, and things went viral, and here we are about a year later, and there's 38,000 going on 39,000 people, and we're getting deer sent in to us faster than we can really share them.
Wow, I know one guy that does that, Troy Cravens. Do you know Troy?
I do not.
And he started doing that. In fact, I posted my Iowa buck with him a couple of years back, and I just want to thank you for sharing all the trophies. We talked in the warm up about trophy hunting, my joy to hunt up at Iowa Trophy Whitetail Outfitters with Judd Cooney and Sherry Yarbrough, and I took a young deer, but his brow tines were almost 10 inches, and that's why I shot him. And just a pretty deer. I got him up on the wall, and he's not my largest deer, but the joy of the hunt, that memory will stay with me forever. So talk about the memories that you guys are helping to create.
Yeah, one thing we really like to instill is, us at Trophy Bucks, there's 4 of us. We really like to shoot mature deer, 4.5 or older. Really, it isn't about inches at that point in time. It's about letting the deer get to maturity. But one thing we do is we don't just share people's deer if they're over a certain amount of inches. We want to instill that, a trophy to me may not be the same meaning of a trophy to a young boy that went out on his first hunt and he only shot a 4-corn 1.5 year old. And now that's something that we wouldn't do, but it's a trophy to them, and it's about the memories that they got to go out and, they can probably remember the exact moment they shot the deer and what it meant to them, and they'll remember that for the rest of their lives. So Trophy Bucks of Iowa just isn't about the inches that's on the head of the animal. It may even be a doe, but it's about their trophy and what it means to them to take that animal.
Yeah, I heard that from Brenda Valentine about a year and a half ago when we first started the show. She graciously was a guest, and she said, "Bruce, it's your hunt. Doesn't matter how much you pay, if it's DIY or you're on somebody's lease, or you're paying an outfitter to get you in the field. It doesn't matter. It's still your hunt, and you're hunting for your reasons, not somebody else's." And I think so many times we get, especially guys, well, I got to get a bigger buck than Johnny or whatever. And
yep, absolutely.
And you look at your buck, and you can see it on social media. Guys say, well, it's not the biggest buck. As soon as they say, well, it's like, stop.
Yeah, you're downgrading what you did, and I absolutely agree.
Because hunting is such a wonderful thing, and I can think back to the first deer 50 years ago, that I shot. I still know where I shot him. And I know my buddy still, every time we get together, he goes, "I can't believe you unloaded your shotgun on that poor deer. How many times did you want to kill him?"
Well, and it's, and we'll get sometimes, where people will comment, "I can't believe you took that deer." And, again, it's all about what it means to that person. And you might have a 5-year-old deer that's never going to get to be 180-inch class, or, it's, people see hunting on TV in Iowa and they think they're going to come to Iowa and automatically shoot a Boone and Crockett deer. And, that's just not the case. It does take great managing, having the right property. But to some people, their whole dream isn't to shoot a Boone and Crockett. It's just to have the memories and get out there and have a successful hunt with family and friends.
Yeah, and I couldn't I agree with you more, because of all the years I can think of some of the best hunts I ever was on. I didn't take any game.
Yep. It's amazing on how, when we come into more, I've gotten into bow hunting more over the years, and now the bow hunting is my time, and I go out and I get to see the woods come alive and get to see things that most of the generation don't even get to see, because it's happening out in nature, and a lot of people aren't seeing that. The gun hunting now has become the camaraderie and hanging out with multiple generations, and we've been seeing a lot on Trophy Bucks of Iowa. We've seen 4 generations in one photo, and that's just fantastic.
Yeah, and like I said, I think back to the crew that we started out. We got a bunkhouse crew, and Dick's like 72, I'm 70, and his son's, in his 30s, and the whole family. And Wisconsin hunting tradition is generational. The same cabin that great grandfathers built are being used by the great grandsons now, and they're still going to the same place, sleeping in the same bunks, telling the same stories, playing cribbage or cards at the same card table. I mean, it just, the stories go on, and the stands are all named the same, and it's tradition, and all brings it back to what I call common ground, because we're in those shacks, around a campfire. We do reach common ground with everybody there, and you throw away bank accounts, you leave your ego in your truck, and you're just there to enjoy each other's company and talk about something that we love.
Absolutely. I remember, it's the week leading up to our deer camp. Sleep gets less and less as each day gets closer to the opening day of deer camp.
And it's a tradition that, you need to share. And in the warm-up, you shared how to get in touch with you. So just slowly, so people can write it down or listen or remember it. The Facebook, the Twitter, the Instagram, your personal Facebook page. Can you share all those with us?
Yeah, absolutely. My Facebook is Brandon Dahms. You can reach me on there. I also have an Instagram. It's Dahms77. And then our Trophy Bucks of Iowa page, the Facebook, it is Trophy Bucks of Iowa. I think there's a few other pages that have come out that are similar, but ours is just Trophy Bucks of Iowa. Our Instagram is Iowa Trophy Bucks. And then,
how about your URL, your website?
Just trophybucksofiowa.com.
All right. And thanks for sharing that. And folks, I asked Brandon in the beginning, I said, are you guys outfitters or just DIY hunters? And so let's talk about that a little bit. And we talked a little bit of why you got this outfit going. But let's talk about what roles each of you guys play.
Yeah, so we are not outfitters. We do take a lot of friends hunting just because of our knowledge and trying to get as many of our friends into the outdoors as we can that normally wouldn't have been introduced to it. But we get messages daily on, what's your guys' rates? And we are not outfitters. We are strictly a Facebook page and other forums that share your trophies. And the four of us, Mark, Eric, Ryan, and myself, we just have an extreme passion for hunting and letting others see it and sharing their success stories as well. Eric and Mark, they're twin brothers. They hunt down in southwest Iowa. And Ryan hunts in southwest Iowa as well, and a few Des Moines area properties. And I mainly hunt in southern Iowa, down in the southern tiers, in the Ringgold County area.
Thanks for that. And let's move on and talk about getting youth involved. That's a big push for you guys. So let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I grew up in Illinois, where on my mom's side, hunting really wasn't that popular. It was my dad, when I'd just go see him for every other weekend, he would always talk about the outdoors, and it's something I really wish I would have got more into when I was young, because I remember how excited I would get every year knowing when December was coming around and it was gun season in Iowa, I got to go hunting with my dad, and seeing some of my other friends grow up with it. They're always outside, had amazing stories, and we're just really noticing a lot of the youth are not really, they're kind of disconnected from the outdoors. And what we've really been excited about is the amount of youth and people that normally wouldn't be taken outside hunting, sharing, such as guys just taking their nephews and nieces hunting, or a young kid getting excited of hunting because of his friends, so he got his father and brother and everybody else excited about it. And really, they're really wanting to share their success story on our Facebook page, and that's had them want other people to share their story on our Facebook page, and it's just kind of a goal of getting on Trophy Bucks of Iowa. So we're excited that some kids that would normally have not been out in the outdoors, their uncle or somebody called them up and said, "Hey, would you be interested in going out?" And they go out, and the smile on their face just speaks volume when it's something they normally wouldn't have been introduced to because their immediate family wasn't into it. Our passion helped lead to them being introduced to it, which may lead generations to come.
So I don't have any kids of my own, and I'm saying, gee, I'd like to take out the neighbor's kid. What's the best way to approach a parent or somebody and say, hey, I'd really like to take your kid hunting?
I've taken quite a few youth hunting, especially this year. Actually, I just took somebody out last weekend, and they got to experience the first harvest of a doe. And really, they showed some interest in just what I do. And even if the parent wasn't, but the child was, I kind of just approached them and I said, hey, even if they don't go hunting, would you be interested in me just allowing them to come and kind of watch and just be in the outdoors? Maybe just put them in a tree stand the first few times with me or a ground blind, and just see if sitting in the outdoors and seeing deer up close gets them excited. And it has every time. And they go home and talk about it so much that the parents have come and said, I'd be more than happy to let you take them hunting. And so usually I spend some time with them, get them familiar with the type of weapon that we're going to be taking them, and usually invite the parents out as well, so that way they're comfortable with me, because I have the safety of their child or whoever at my hand. Usually once everybody gets comfortable, then we go out. And sometimes I invite the family, sometimes it's just the child, but usually I try to take it in small steps because sometimes it can be kind of a foreign idea to let their son or somebody go out hunting if it's not part of their lifestyle already.
So if some kid is listening to the show, Whitetail Rendezvous, and says, boy, I'd like to do that, is the best place just to message you on Facebook then?
Yeah, message us on Facebook. Even if we don't have time available or we're already, taking somebody else out, I'm sure we can find somebody that is, in their area or we know that is, reliable that could take them on a hunt because, I mean, it's extremely important to, I know with TV and everything, youth and women have, at least some videoing of their hunts have been getting popular, but I just think that it's all you should experience at some point in time. It's not for everybody, and I think they would know once they go out if it isn't, but I really think some kids are really missing out on not getting out there.
And we're talking boys and girls, guys and gals.
Absolutely. I mean, I've taken a couple, some of my customers that have never been experienced to hunting, and I talk about it with a passion, and they always say, you talk about it so much and you enjoy it so much. I'd like just to experience because they have no idea what I'm talking about when I explain hunting. It's like a foreign language to them. So when I take them out there and they experience a deer up close and personal, he went from being just a city guy that's never been fishing or hunting before to now they literally only eat what they harvest, and he now gets it. When we talk, they understand. So it's not just for youth. There could be a 60-year-old grown man that's never been involved with it, and all it takes is somebody extending an invite and taking them, and it can change somebody's life.
Let's change it up and talk about 216 and your hunt. We'll start first with your very first bow kill.
Yeah, it was my first buck of the year. I actually had pictures of this deer earlier in the year, and he was not on my hit list. I knew he was old enough, but I had some mature deer that were just higher on the list. And my first priority in bow season every year is to establish which properties I'm going to be going after the bucks, and then which ones have too high of a doe population, and that's where I'll be taking my does, because the majority of the meat that my wife and I eat is venison because I'm allergic to beef. So actually venison or some of the other game that we eat or harvest is pretty much all we eat. So once I established that property, I was going after a buck. I kind of put that deer off in the back of my mind, wasn't even on the radar. And I was hunting. It would have been about a week before I harvested this buck in November. I had one of the biggest deer I ever shot with my bow in my life, ducked my arrow. And I was not a happy camper. I was pretty bummed about it. Yeah, you go through all the steps, you take all the time. This deer was a 5-year-old, and he would have been hands down the largest deer I'd ever harvested, and clean miss. Really didn't even know what happened. Ran off, and but I was pretty upset, probably pouting more than I should have. But we went. I decided, well, let's go to this other property. I'm going to check trail cameras and see what's there. And I pulled the cards, and this buck is on it. I'm like, this is the deer that I had been seeing in velvet earlier, and he really didn't lose that much mass from velvet, and I knew he was mature. And I said I had a sneaky suspicion that he was bedding up in this one corner of the property that I hadn't hunted in years. And I had a climber that I had put up there, and literally it's been there for 2 years. And that's the same spot I had actually shot my first ever deer in with a bow. And I don't know why I didn't go there for 2 years. I just got caught up in all the other places. So I decided to go there one morning and climbed the tree, and a doe came walking in, and a good friend of mine and his son was actually along the hunt with me, and because he had wanted to get his first deer. And I had said, well, if a mature doe walks by, I got a tag. I'll be more than happy to take the doe, and we'll take it to the locker, and you and your boy can take the meat home. And a doe come by, and I was full draw on it, and I hear something coming, and I'm like, well, it's November. there's probably something chasing it. So I decided to let down, and here comes a little button buck chasing the doe. So I was bummed there again, just because I let the doe go that I was going to take for my friend to the locker and use up my last archery tag, doe tag. And I set my bow on the bow hanger and go to sit down, and I hear a twig break behind me right where the doe and button buck went. I thought, oh, they're coming back. And I go to turn around and set of antlers, and I knew immediately it was a mature deer. I didn't know it was the one I was after because it happened so quickly, but I was right on the border of the neighbor's property and mine, so I didn't have a lot of time before it crossed the fence. And once it crossed the fence, I don't have permission. I'd have to pass the deer. And so I drew back and connected, and the buck ran maybe 30, 40 yards and keeled over. And it ended up being the buck that I drew the card on and made me go up there. So it's nice when things work out. It went just a plan, and it's a nice chocolate rack 9-pointer. Not the biggest deer in the world, but mature, and I was absolutely tickled with them.
Let's go back, and you hunt a lot of properties. Let's talk about your sets and why you choose to put either hanger or a climber or a double stand up.
Yep. So I run a lot of cameras. Run a ton of cameras every year, so I have a pretty good knowledge of the high traffic areas, where the mature bucks are, and what properties have a lot of does. And I like to put doubles up where I'll be taking, if my nephew comes or my wife wants to come sit with me, or a father-son wants to go. I like to put those in higher traffic areas. That way, they may not be out for a big buck. They just want to, see some deer and have action just to introduce them. So I'll put the doubles where I know they'll be seeing deer. The climbers is in more of a remote area where only I'll go hunt after some of my hit list deer. I don't like other people using it just because I would hate for them to not be familiar with a climber and get injured. But I always have, certain areas I like to put. It depends on what time of the year I'm hunting, but I'll always put pinch points near my food plots and between the food and the bedding areas. I like to keep the bedding areas pretty much left alone. And excuse me. And this climber that I was sitting in that I harvested my buck happened to just be a pinch point that was leading right from bedding area to one of my food plots. And he was I believe scent checking the ridge heading towards the food plot to see if there was any does in it.
Now, you mentioned scent checking. Are you above him or below him? Talk to me about the wind.
The wind was actually couldn't have been worse. What the wind app told me it was going to be doing, it was doing the opposite. And the wind was supposed to be coming out of the northwest, and the deer came from the northwest, but the wind happened to be out of the southeast. And I was up high enough. I believe my scent wasn't dropping until it was beyond where the deer was coming. But I also had just recently started using this season ozone technology, and I downwind. I haven't been busted yet with using the ozone technology. As well as mature buck odors. So even though it was swirling in years past, I would have probably gotten down, and that way I didn't bugger up the area. But I really wasn't worried at all with the opposite wind direction, just because of I was confident in not being busted with using the ozone and the Wind Pro.
Now, how do you get into your stands? Do you stalk your stands, or you take the same trail? How does that work?
Usually I take the same trail. I'll never set a stand up where I have to go through a bedding area, or if the wind's coming in the wrong direction. So I actually have to get to this climber where I harvested the deer. I actually have to go through quite a bit of timber, but it's not a bedding area. It's strictly a travel corridor for deer. And the time of day that I usually go to this stand, I'm not worried at all about blowing deer out of the area. Most of the deer bed a solid 100 yards on the opposite direction, maybe even 200 yards away. So usually I come in from the road and I hug to a part of the property that doesn't hold a lot of deer. And when I come through the timber, it's by the time they'll be crossing through that area, they would have already crossed through my my shooting zone. So I'm not worried about it all getting checked or busted when walking through.
Let's switch it up and head out west to Wyoming, and something very exciting happened out there.
Yeah, it was kind of a bucket list trip. I've always talked about going out west, and in the back of my mind, it was something that I thought wouldn't happen for many years down the road. And I'm part of another online forum, and one of the guys on there is actually going to college out in Wyoming, and he had said, "Hey, would you be interested in coming out and doing a do-it-yourself public land hunt with me?" So I actually went out in September with my bow and saw a ton of wildlife. I went out to Wyoming, and it catapulted Wyoming to the top of the states for me as far as beauty and wildlife. But we got really close on many. I actually went out there just to harvest a cow. I didn't care if it was a bull or cow, just because we were going out there more to fill the freezer and get the experience of the area. And my friend Josh, he actually ended up harvesting a very nice over 300-inch bull with his bow that weekend. And I came home empty-handed, but it turned out that the same tag I was out there with my bow I could use in December with a rifle. And so me and a local friend here in Des Moines each had a tag. So we both set out to Wyoming in December, the week after shotgun season here in Iowa, and decided we were going to try to see if we could fill one, if not both, of our tags. And the opening morning while we were there, I actually our GPS wasn't working that well, and we came across a herd of almost 300 to 400 cows and spikes. It was a sight to see that many elk running. But since the GPS wasn't working properly, we weren't 100% positive if they were on public or private, because we were pretty close to the lines, and so we let them go, and better to be safe than sorry. And it turned out they were right in the middle of public and could have harvested them, but it's, like I said, better to be safe than sorry there. So then that evening, clear up on the mountain. Normally they're coming off the mountain this time of the year, but the wind was so incredibly strong. We were having 50-mile-an-hour gusts every day we were there, nonstop. So the wind or the snow really wasn't accumulating up on the mountain, so the elk weren't having, an urgency to come down off the mountain. So about halfway up, I saw a group of 5 bulls at last light, right above public, but not on public. So I glassed them until dark, and I noticed they fed down into the sage, right into the public at past legal light. So we made a point to be there at first opening legal light, and didn't see them. We're literally getting ready to leave that next morning and check new spots, and we just happened to glance one elk, and it's about 2 miles off the road. But the wind was perfect. The wind was blowing from them to us, so we hiked up. By the time we got up there, they had fed down right into the middle of the public section, and there was 5 bulls, 2 young ones, the 2 that we ended up harvesting, a 6x7 and a 6x6, and then one that was a once-in-a-lifetime elk. And it took us about 2 hours to sneak to them. The wind was so strong, we didn't want to take a long-range shot just because of the wind affecting our bullet and our experience with it. So we ended up getting to under 100 yards from them, and they started feeding back to us. And so I was on the right, my friend was on the left, and we each had our sights set on one. The largest one of the group was still feeding over the hill, so we didn't see him at the time, but it was now or never. So I picked the one I wanted, he picked the one he wanted, and we shot on 3, and both bulls dropped immediately. And then the work began.
Yeah.
But we were ecstatic. It was a surreal moment, to go out there. Even though I was going out there was a lot of elk. Until it happened, it was one of those things that I still, in the back of my mind, kind of expected to go home with just fond memories of seeing a lot of great wildlife, and not going home with a bull. So it was an extremely emotional and exciting time for both of us.
Now, how do you view elk hunting as opposed to whitetail hunting?
It was two totally different experiences. I'll have to say, going out in September, I will be going back out again, 100%. But just like whitetail hunting, archery was unbelievable. It's I don't think anything will ever take away from me enjoying Iowa whitetails. Whitetail will always be my number one, but I am definitely going to try to make it a staple of going out west with my bow. It was beautiful country, something that I think everybody should see, once in a lifetime views, and quite the adrenaline rush. We saw a mom bear with 3 cubs. First time I'd seen that. We saw multiple moose, antelope, mule deer, and just tons of elk. So it's two different adrenalines, two different, but something that I will absolutely put in to do more.
And not giving out any honey holes, what national forest were you hunting on?
We were actually, excuse me, it was it's a little set. It's different than Iowa, where it's all kind of checkered to where it's kind of a square mile by square mile of public and then private. So it wasn't all. We were in Wyoming, and it's, like I said, it was a over the counter tag, do it yourself hunt. But I will say the one thing that really helped was studying the land maps, because if I went out there and didn't understand the way the laws were with, I never heard of corner crossing, and you can't corner cross where you go from public to public if their corners touch. And if I wouldn't have known all this, somebody could go out there and be breaking the law and have no idea. So I would highly recommend people look into it. If I can do it, anybody can do it. It was almost, I thought it would be a lot more work and more than I wanted them to get out there and do it. But really, once you understand the laws and the way, the means of getting the tags, it really isn't as hard as what I thought it would be. So the main thing I can say is to study the laws and really learn the land. Getting out there in September with my bow paid absolute dividends. I already knew the area, so that's probably my main points.
Yeah, and thanks for sharing that, because I can remember, going to school in Wisconsin, and a crew of us jumped in a pickup truck and said we're going to Colorado. And fortunately, I had met Dwight Shue at the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, bought his book, and between that and topo maps, I found where the drainage I wanted to be in. And in Colorado, there's a lot of elk, so you're probably safe to say you're going to see some elk. And had a great hunt, and didn't harvest anything, but I was really close. I smelled a bull elk before he took off and ran away from me. I wasn't 50 yards from him, probably even closer than that. And then I had a nice shot at a mature mule deer buck, which didn't come to fruition, but that was our first trip out there, and that was in the 80s and early 80s, and I always come back to that I spent more time researching. And now you have Google Earth. There's absolutely no reason that you can't sit right at your home wherever you are in North America and figure out how to hunt Montana, Wyoming, Utah, wherever you can get a tag, and how you can hunt it DIY and be successful. Your thoughts?
Yep, absolutely. It's all about the work you put in before and the research you do. I mean, it's the amount of wildlife on public. I think people think of public land and it's probably overcrowded and there's no wildlife there and it's just not even worth doing. And you would have thought we were on private property that hadn't been hunted in 20 years, because the amount of wildlife that we saw out there on 100% public land was incredible. I mean, I could probably go back out there with just a camera and not even a tag or weapon and just have a once-in-a-lifetime trip as well. I mean, it's just, everybody should get out and experience just taking a backpack, hiking out in the wilderness and seeing an elk bugle is something that it's just inexplainable.
Well, thanks for that. I'm looking at my counter. I'm going, holy fright, we're out of time. But before you go, take a minute or two. I know you're connected with Scent Crusher and anybody else that you want to give shout outs to.
Yeah, we're on Trophy Bucks of Iowa, and myself are teamed up with Scent Crusher this year. If a person's not familiar with it, look into it. We have not been busted downwind this year. It's where you just stick your clothes in the duffel bag or closet, and it uses ozone technology, and it really helps. I mean, it's still still try to hunt the right winds and do everything you can, spray down, but I will say it works. It eliminates the odors. I went on board just initially to, hey, we can get some cool stuff and give it a go, and I am 100% believer. WinPro is another one that has synthetic deer scents in powder form. If you're running trail cameras and you want to create a mock scrape, WinPro is unbelievable. I mean, I was making a mock scrape. I just went out in my work clothes, probably put my scent all over the place, put WinPro on it, and it wasn't 30 minutes later, I had a buck on camera making a scrape over my WinPro. So if you want to take an inventory on your trail camera, look up WinPro. It's absolutely incredible. Go ahead.
No.
And then the last one was stealth cameras. Stealth cameras really helped us out. We've been using some of theirs and really happy with their results. Stealth cameras, stealthcam.com. And the final one, is Antler King. We had food plots this year, and Antler King really partnered with us. And my turnips and radishes were twice as big as anything I ever grew. I was extremely impressed. I didn't really do that much maintenance to them, and they were unbelievably lush, lots of tonnage of food for the deer, and I think it's really going to help with shed season as well. So Antler King products, look into them for food plots and seed.
Thank you so much, Brandon Dahms, for being on the show and sharing about Trophy Bucks of Iowa. So, folks, if you haven't got them on Facebook and submitted something, go right ahead, because they're just waiting to share your story and your memories with everybody on social media. So on behalf of thousands of listeners across North America, thank you so much for being a guest on the show.
Thank you so much, Bruce. I really appreciate having me on. It's been a blast.
Hey, we got a wonderful show coming up next. The next episode is Jeremy Berlin of Wisconsin, and he talks about in depth about taking a magnificent mature buck. I'm not going to tell you how big, but it surely is a Mr. Wonderful. Stay tuned. You're going to enjoy the show.
Thanks for joining us. Be sure to tune in tomorrow for another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous, where you can listen and learn from the experts so you can be more successful on your next hunt. Until next time, listen, learn, and succeed.